What if everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations was wrong? Scattered across the globe, buried beneath layers of time, lie strange objects that defy explanation, artifacts so puzzling they turn our understanding of history upside down. These aren't just old tools or broken pottery. They're relics that whisper secrets of lost technologies, forgotten cultures, and perhaps even civilizations far more advanced than we ever imagined. From mysterious stone spheres with impossibly precise geometry to ancient batteries that shouldn't exist, these artifacts don't just confuse archaeologists, they threaten to rewrite the story of humanity itself. Think about standing in front of an object that's thousands of years old, yet no one can explain how it was made or why. That's the thrill of these prehistoric enigmas. They're not just museum pieces, they're riddles carved in stone, molded in metal, or etched into the very earth. Some were found in places they shouldn't be, made with techniques that hadn't been invented yet, or bearing symbols that no living person can decipher. And the most fascinating part, the deeper we dig, the more questions we uncover. Today, we're diving into 30 of the most baffling relics ever discovered. Each one is a piece of a puzzle that stretches back farther than recorded history, hinting at societies with knowledge we're only beginning to grasp. Some might be evidence of early genius, a proof that our ancestors were far more ingenious than we give them credit for. Others, well, they might just suggest that someone or something was here long before us. So let's begin this journey into the unknown, where every artifact tells a story, and every discovery leaves us with more mysteries than answers. The Antikythera Mechanism isn't just another artifact, it's a time capsule of genius, a device so advanced that it rewrote what we thought ancient civilizations were capable of. Discovered in a shipwreck off the coast of the Greek island Antikythera in 1901, this corroded bronze relic spent decades puzzling researchers. At first glance, it looked like a lump of decayed metal, but when scientists peered beneath the surface, they found something extraordinary. A complex system of interlocking gears, dials, and inscriptions, resembling the inner workings of a modern mechanical clock. This wasn't just a tool, it was a precision-engineered machine designed to track celestial movements with astonishing accuracy. The mechanism could predict solar and lunar eclipses, chart the positions of the sun, moon, and known planets, and even account for irregularities in the moon's orbit. It was, in essence, an analog computer from a time when such technology shouldn't have existed. The craftsmanship suggests a level of astronomical and mechanical knowledge that historians once believed didn't emerge until over 1,000 years later during the Renaissance. So who built it and why? Some scholars think it was the work of ancient Greek astronomers, possibly linked to the legendary inventor Archimedes, though the device itself dates to around 100 to 200 BC, decades after his death. Others argue it might have been a teaching tool for elite students or even a navigational aid for sailors. But perhaps the most tantalizing question is whether it was a one-of-a-kind masterpiece or if there were others like it, lost to time. The Antikythera Mechanism forces us to reconsider the technological capabilities of the ancient world. If something this sophisticated existed over 2,000 years ago, what else might have been invented and forgotten? Every gear in this relic whispers a challenge to our assumptions, proving that history's mysteries aren't just about what we've found, but what we've yet to uncover. The Voynich Manuscript isn't just an old book, it's a riddle wrapped in parchment, written in a language no one understands, filled with illustrations of plants that don't exist. Discovered in 1912 by antiquarian Wilfrid Voynich, this enigmatic text has baffled cryptographers, linguists, and historians for over a century. Carbon dating places its creation between 1404 and 1438, yet its contents remain utterly indecipherable. The pages are covered in elegant, looping script, a writing system unlike any known language, accompanied by vivid drawings of unidentifiable herbs, floating castles, and mysterious bathing women. Countless experts have tried to crack its code, from World War II codebreakers to modern AI algorithms, but the manuscript refuses to give up its secrets. Some theories suggest it's an elaborate medieval hoax, while others argue it's a lost scientific or alchemical text. The illustrations only deepen the mystery. Detailed botanical sketches of plants with no known counterparts, celestial charts with unfamiliar constellations, and intricate diagrams that seem to depict biological or even cosmological processes. Every attempt to match its symbols to known languages, from Latin to Hebrew to invented ciphers, has failed. What makes the Voynich Manuscript so tantalizing is that it feels meaningful. The text has patterns consistent with real language, not random gibberish. The words follow grammatical rules, with certain characters appearing only in specific positions, just like in actual writing systems. Yet without a single recognizable word or parallel document, it remains a linguistic black hole. Even the most advanced machine learning models, trained on thousands of languages, hit a dead end. Could it be a lost dialect, an elaborate cipher, or something even stranger? The manuscript's resilience to decoding suggests either an unparalleled act of medieval deception or a glimpse into knowledge so niche it's vanished from history. Until someone or something unlocks its meaning, the Voynich Manuscript stands as a haunting reminder of how much we don't know about the past. Deep in the mountains of China's Bayernha region, a discovery in 1938 sparked a debate that still rages today: the Dropa Stones. These bizarre artifacts, found hidden in a remote cave system, aren't your typical ancient relics. They're thin, flat stone discs, some measuring up to 12 inches across, with a perfect hole in the center, almost like ancient records. But what makes them truly extraordinary are the tiny spiral grooves carving their surfaces, grooves that, upon closer inspection, reveal something even stranger. Rows of minuscule hieroglyphs, symbols so small and precise they seem almost machine-made. The story takes an even wilder turn when local legends collide with the discovery. According to tribal accounts passed down for generations, the caves were once home to a peculiar group of beings, small, frail creatures with oversized heads who descended from the sky in a crash centuries ago. The Dropa people, as they're called, supposedly inscribed these stones with their history before vanishing. When researchers attempted to translate the inscriptions, the claims grew even more astonishing. Some interpretations suggested the texts told of an alien spacecraft crash landing in the mountains, leaving its survivors stranded on Earth. Of course, skepticism followed like a shadow. Mainstream archaeologists point out that no reputable scientific study has ever confirmed the stone's authenticity. The original discs allegedly vanished during World War II, leaving only photographs and second-hand accounts. Critics argue the hieroglyphs could be natural erosion patterns misinterpreted as writing, or even an elaborate hoax. After all, the idea of ancient aliens tends to overshadow more grounded explanations. Yet the mystery lingers. A handful of scientists have claimed the stones exhibit unusual properties, like high cobalt or nickel content metals often linked to advanced alloys. And then there's the eerie coincidence of similar disc-like artifacts popping up in other cultures, from the Neolithic stone pennies of Europe to the Jomon people's mysterious clay discs in Japan. Could the Dropa stones be fragments of a lost technology, or just an archaeological Rorschach test, revealing more about our fascination with the unknown than about history itself? For now, they remain one of archaeology's most tantalizing riddles. Real or not, the Dropa stones challenge us to ask, if proof of extraterrestrial contact existed, would we even recognize it or dismiss it as fantasy? Until the discs resurface for proper study, their secrets stay locked in those cryptic spirals, waiting for someone to finally decode their truth. Among the dusty shelves of Baghdad's National Museum of Iraq sits an object that shouldn't exist, a humble clay jar that might rewrite the history of electricity. Known as the Baghdad Battery, this unassuming artifact, roughly 2,000 years old, consists of a terracotta pot, a copper cylinder, and an iron rod, all sealed with an asphalt plug. At first glance, it looks like an ancient storage vessel, but reconstructing it with an acidic liquid like vinegar or grape juice reveals something astonishing. It produces a small but measurable electric current. The discovery, made in 1936 near the ancient city of Ctesiphon, sparked a heated debate. Could the Parthians or Sasanians, who ruled the region between 250 BCE and 650 CE, have stumbled upon electrochemistry centuries before Alessandro Volta's famous battery in 1800? Experiments by researchers like Wilhelm Koenig, who first proposed the battery theory, showed the setup could generate around 1 volt of electricity, enough to electroplate small objects with gold or silver. Some artisans in the region still use primitive electroplating techniques today, hinting at a possible lost tradition. But not everyone's convinced. Skeptics argue the jars might have held sacred scrolls, with the iron and copper acting as protective casings rather than conductive elements. Others suggest they stored herbs or perfumes, with the asphalt simply preserving the contents. The truth is, without written records or clear archaeological context, the Baghdad Battery remains a tantalizing what-if. Yet the implications are electrifying. If these were indeed ancient power cells, how widespread was their use? Could they have illuminated temples, powered simple medical devices, or even played a role in religious rituals? Unlike the Antikythera Mechanism, which showcases undeniable mechanical complexity, the Baghdad Battery's purpose is murkier, a whisper of potential rather than a shout. That ambiguity is what makes it so compelling. Whether it's proof of early scientific ingenuity or a case of modern wishful thinking, this relic challenges us to reconsider the boundaries of ancient innovation. Buried in the sands near Egypt's Saqqara necropolis lies an artifact that seems to defy its own time, a delicate wooden carving known as the Saqqara Bird. Discovered in 1898 during the excavation of a tomb dating back to 200 BCE, this small, bird-shaped object immediately stood out, not for its craftsmanship, but for its uncanny resemblance to a modern aircraft. With its streamlined body, angled wings, and even what appears to be a stabilizing tail fin, the Saqqara Bird looks less like a religious symbol and more like a rudimentary glider. Aviation enthusiasts and some researchers argue this isn't just coincidence. When scaled up and tested in wind tunnels, replicas of the Saqqara Bird demonstrate remarkable aerodynamic properties, capable of stable, short-distance gliding. The wing curvature mimics the same principles that allow modern aircraft to generate lift, suggesting its creators might have understood basic flight mechanics centuries before Da Vinci sketched his famous ornithopter. Could this be evidence of ancient aviation experiments, or even a child's toy modeled after something far more advanced? Proponents of this theory point to Egyptian mythology's fascination with flight, from the sky god Horus to legends of magical winged discs that soared across the heavens. But mainstream archaeology pushes back hard. Many experts dismiss the aerodynamic claims as wishful thinking, arguing the object is most likely a stylized falcon, a common religious symbol tied to the god Horus. The so-called tail fin might simply be a bird's tail feathers, and the lack of any surviving propulsion mechanism or steering device makes the flight theory shaky at best. Others suggest it could have been a ceremonial throw stick or even a weather vane designed to spin in the wind rather than glide. The debate boils down to interpretation. Without hieroglyphic context or additional artifacts to corroborate its purpose, the Saqqara Bird remains a Rorschach test of the ancient world. To some, it's proof of lost technological wisdom. To others, just another bird carving in a civilization that adored them. Yet its lingering mystery serves as a reminder. Sometimes the line between ritual and innovation is thinner than we think. Whether sacred object or secret blueprint, this relic soars above easy explanation, leaving us to wonder just how close humanity came to the skies long before the Wright brothers left the ground. In 1936, a curious discovery near the small town of London, Texas, sent shockwaves through the archaeological community, a hammer literally encased in stone. Not just any stone, but rock dated to the Cretaceous period, over 100 million years old. The artifact, now known as the London Hammer, looks like an ordinary tool at first glance, a wooden handle with a metal head heavily corroded by time. But its context defies logic. Found protruding from a solid layer of ancient limestone, the hammer appears to have been embedded there long before humans were supposed to exist, let alone forge metal tools. Geologists who examined the surrounding rock confirmed its age, placing it in a time when dinosaurs still roamed the earth. The hammer's head, made of an unusual iron alloy with low sulfur content, suggests advanced metallurgy, far beyond what primitive societies were thought capable of. Even more baffling, the wooden handle showed signs of partial fossilization, as if it had been subjected to immense pressure and time. Critics have rushed to debunk the find, arguing that the hammer could be a 19th-century mining tool that somehow became encased in rapidly forming mineral deposits. But this explanation struggles to account for the rock's confirmed age or the hammer's peculiar composition. Supporters of the artifact's antiquity point to its discovery in an untouched sedimentary layer with no evidence of modern disturbance. If it were a recent intrusion, there would be signs of chiseling or cracks in the surrounding stone, yet the hammer sits seamlessly within its million-year-old tomb. Some researchers even speculate that the iron's purity hints at techniques not reinvented until the industrial era, raising the chilling possibility of a lost cycle of human or non-human civilization. The London Hammer forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. Could advanced societies have risen and fallen long before recorded history? Or does this relic point to a flaw in our geological dating methods? Mainstream science dismisses it as an outlier, but its very existence challenges the neat timelines we've constructed. Whether an enigmatic relic from a forgotten age or a geological oddity, the hammer remains a stubborn nail in the coffin of conventional history. The Piri Reis Map isn't just an old navigational chart, it's a cosmic riddle inked onto gazelle skin. Created in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis, this fragmented world map shouldn't be as accurate as it is. At first glance, it depicts familiar coastlines of Europe, Africa, and the Americas with surprising precision for its time. But the real shock lies at the bottom of the parchment, the northern coastline of Antarctica, drawn in crisp detail without ice. And that's impossible. Antarctica's coastal contours have been buried under miles of ice for at least 6,000 years, long before any known civilization could have mapped them. So how did a 16th-century admiral have access to knowledge that modern scientists only confirmed with satellite imagery in the 20th century? Reis himself left clues in the map's margins, where he scribbled notes claiming to have compiled it from older sources, some dating back to ancient Alexandria's legendary library, others from captured Spanish and Portuguese sailors who might have had access to lost pre-Columbian charts. The most tantalizing theory suggests the map preserves fragments of a vastly older global surveying effort, perhaps by a forgotten seafaring culture that explored Antarctica during a brief warm period. Critics, of course, have alternative explanations. Some argue the Antarctica coastline is actually a distorted version of South America, a common error in early maps where landmasses were stretched or misaligned. Others propose that the details could be coincidental, a lucky approximation based on speculative geography, but the precision is hard to dismiss. The map's rendering of the Andes matches modern topography, and the inclusion of the Falkland Islands, unknown to Europeans until the 1600s, hints at knowledge that shouldn't have existed. Then there's the eerie alignment with modern subglacial surveys. In 1956, when cartographer Arlington Mallory compared the Piri Reis Map to seismic data of Antarctica beneath the ice, he found chilling overlaps, particularly in Queen Maud Land, where the map's bays and mountain ranges align with radar-mapped geological features. If this isn't luck, it implies someone, somewhere, charted Antarctica's true coastline millennia before the continent was officially discovered. The map's enigma raises profound questions. Did ancient explorers circumnavigate the globe long before Magellan? Could advanced cartography have been lost during catastrophes like the fall of Rome or Alexandria's burning? Or is the Piri Reis Map a mosaic of half-remembered truths and brilliant guesses? Whatever the case, this fragile parchment is more than a relic. It's a ghostly echo of knowledge that history forgot, daring us to reconsider who really mapped the world first. With each faded line, it whispers that our understanding of exploration might be just the tip of an iceberg, one that's been hidden for ages. Perched high in the arid plains of southern Peru, the Nazca Lines stretch across nearly 200 square miles of desert like a giant sketchbook. These sprawling geoglyphs, etched into the earth between 500 BC and 500 CE, depict everything from hummingbirds to spiders to geometric shapes so vast they can only be fully appreciated from the sky. Some stretch over 1,200 feet long, longer than 3 football fields, yet their lines remain eerily precise, as if drawn with an unseen ruler. The sheer scale and precision baffle archaeologists. How did the Nazca people, without flight or modern tools, create designs so large they're invisible from the ground? The method behind these ancient masterpieces reveals remarkable ingenuity. By removing the dark, iron-rich topsoil to expose the lighter clay beneath, the Nazca created stark contrasts visible from miles above. They likely used simple surveying techniques, stakes, ropes, and careful scaling to transfer smaller designs onto the desert canvas, but the how is only half the mystery. The why sparks even fiercer debate. Mainstream theories suggest the lines served ceremonial or astronomical purposes, perhaps as pathways for religious processions or markers for solstice events. Some glyphs align with underground water sources, hinting at a connection to fertility rituals in this parched landscape. Then there are the fringe theories which lean into the extraterrestrial. The Nazca Lines' aerial visibility has led some to speculate they were landing strips or signals for ancient astronauts, an idea popularized by Swiss author Erich von Däniken in the 1960s. Others point to the depictions of astronaut figures with bulbous heads or the sudden shift from animal motifs to geometric patterns, as if the designs evolved to communicate with observers from above. Skeptics dismiss these claims, noting that the Nazca could have built observation platforms or used kites to view their work, and that many glyphs align with local mythology rather than alien contact. Yet the lines resist easy explanation. Why create art meant for gods or beings you can't see? Why invest centuries perfecting designs invisible to your own eyes? The Nazca's disappearance around 500 CE adds another layer, leaving no written records to decode their intentions. Today, the lines endure as both a testament to human creativity and a riddle wrapped in sand. Whether sacred art, celestial calendar, or something far stranger, they force us to confront a haunting possibility. What if some ancient wonders weren't meant for us to understand at all? As the wind slowly reclaims these fragile markings, the Nazca Lines remain a silent dialogue between earth and sky, one we're still learning to hear. The Shroud of Turin is more than just an ancient piece of linen. It's a canvas of controversy, a relic that blurs the line between faith and science. This 14-foot-long cloth, preserved in Turin's cathedral since the 1600s, bears the faint, ghostly imprint of a bearded man with wounds consistent with crucifixion. For centuries, devout believers have revered it as the actual burial shroud of Jesus Christ, while skeptics dismiss it as an elaborate medieval forgery. But here's what makes it truly fascinating. Despite decades of cutting-edge analysis, no one can definitively explain how the image was created. The shroud's mysteries begin with its eerie, photograph-like negative image, a feature only discovered in 1898 when amateur photographer Secondo Pia noticed the imprint became a startlingly detailed positive when reversed. The image isn't painted or dyed. No pigments or brushstrokes have ever been detected. Instead, it appears to be a superficial discoloration of the linen fibers, as if seared by some unknown burst of energy. Even more perplexing, forensic studies reveal the wounds match biblical accounts of Christ's suffering. Scourge marks, a pierced side, and even what some researchers argue are traces of ancient Jerusalem pollen. Then there's the radiocarbon dating debacle. In 1988, 3 independent labs tested small samples of the shroud, concluding it dated between 1260 and 1390 CE, squarely in the Middle Ages. Case closed, right? Not quite. Critics quickly pointed out the tested samples might have been contaminated by medieval repairs or fire damage from a 1532 blaze that scorched the cloth. More recent studies analyzing plant fibers and dust particles embedded in the fabric suggest it could indeed be 2,000 years old, aligning with the time of Christ. The debate only intensifies with modern technology. Advanced spectroscopy reveals the image contains traces of hemoglobin and bilirubin substances found in bruised or traumatized blood, yet no artist's medium capable of replicating this effect exists in historical records. Some scientists propose a possible flash photolysis effect, where a brief burst of ultraviolet light left the imprint, while others theorize about microbial or chemical reactions over centuries. What if the truth lies somewhere between miracle and misunderstanding? Whether divine relic or enigmatic artifact, the Shroud of Turin refuses to surrender its secrets. It stands as a mirror to our own beliefs, challenging science to explain the unexplainable and faith to embrace the unprovable. In the end, the Shroud's greatest power might not be in proving anything, but in keeping us forever curious, forever questioning. Rising from the red clay of rural Georgia like a modern-day Stonehenge, the Georgia Guidestones have puzzled travelers and conspiracy theorists alike since their sudden appearance in 1980. This 19-foot-tall granite monument, composed of 6 massive slabs weighing over 100 tons each, bears a series of eerie instructions carved in 8 different languages: English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian. Each set of inscriptions delivers the same 10 commandments for a post-apocalyptic world, urging humanity to maintain the global population below 500 million, balance personal rights with social duties, and guide reproduction wisely to improve fitness and diversity. The messages read like a survival manual for a future civilization, coldly precise yet hauntingly vague. What makes the Guidestones truly unsettling isn't just their content, it's the shroud of secrecy around their origins. The monument was commissioned by a man using the pseudonym R.C. Christian, who claimed to represent a small group of Americans seeking to leave guidance for humanity. Working through a local banker to preserve anonymity, Christian paid in cash and provided detailed architectural plans, insisting the structure withstand centuries of wear. The stones were aligned astronomically, with holes drilled to track the sun's solstices and equinoxes, suggesting a deeper, almost ceremonial purpose. Then, just as mysteriously as he appeared, Christian vanished, leaving no paper trail, no manifesto, and no explanation for who his group really was. Conspiracy theories erupted like wildfire. Some claimed the Guidestones were a blueprint for a new world order, their population-control directives echoing dark eugenics. Others saw them as a warning from time travelers or an alien-influenced cult. Even the monument's destruction in 2022 by a vandal who called it satanic before authorities demolished the damaged remains only fueled the intrigue. Was it a sinister agenda carved in stone, or merely a wealthy eccentric's attempt at philosophical art? The Guidestones defy easy categorization. Unlike ancient relics, their modern creation strips away the excuse of lost knowledge, forcing us to confront their message head-on. Whether prophetic or pretentious, they stand as a rare kind of artifact, one designed not to preserve the past but to shape the future. And that's what lingers in a world hurtling toward climate crises and overpopulation. Were these chilling directives a warning we'd regret ignoring? Without their creators to explain, we're left with granite questions and no easy answers. Hidden deep in the jungles of Costa Rica's Diquis Delta, hundreds of stone spheres lie scattered across the landscape like giant marbles dropped by some ancient god. Ranging in size from a few inches to over 6 feet in diameter, with some weighing up to 16 tons, these near-perfect orbs are so precisely crafted that modern measurements show deviations of less than 2 millimeters from flawless geometry. Discovered in the 1930s by United Fruit Company workers clearing land for banana plantations, the spheres date back to the Kyrikwi period between 800 and 1500 CE. But here's the puzzle. How did a pre-Columbian society without written language or metal tools achieve such mathematical perfection in stone? The logistics of their creation boggle the mind. Archaeologists believe the spheres were painstakingly shaped from volcanic rock like gabbro or limestone, using smaller stones as hammers, then polished with sand, a process that would have taken generations of labor. Some show evidence of being heated and rapidly cooled to fracture the surface, allowing artisans to chip away layers with astonishing control. But precision was only half the battle. Transporting these mammoth stones from quarries to their final locations, often miles away through dense rainforest, would have required ingenious rolling systems or log sledges, techniques that leave little trace in the archaeological record. Their purpose is just as mysterious. Many spheres were found arranged in clusters or lines near former village sites, with some groupings aligning to celestial events like solstices. This has led scholars to theorize they served as astronomical markers, territorial symbols, or even status objects for elite families. Indigenous oral traditions hint at deeper meanings, with legends suggesting the spheres were shot by the god of thunder or used as navigational aids by a lost civilization. Yet, unlike pyramids or temples, these artifacts lack obvious religious iconography. Their power lies in their mute geometric perfection. Modern threats add urgency to the mystery. Looters and erosion have displaced many spheres from their original contexts, erasing clues about their arrangement. UNESCO has designated 4 sites as World Heritage, but hundreds more remain unprotected. Each displaced sphere is a silenced voice from the past, their original configurations, and the knowledge they encoded lost forever. The stone spheres force us to confront how little we understand about pre-Columbian societies. Were they practical tools, sacred objects, or something beyond our modern categories? Their silent, flawless surfaces offer no answers, only a challenge. To recognize that ancient ingenuity often defies our assumptions, leaving behind puzzles as smooth and inscrutable as the stones themselves. In the dusty foothills of Peru's Ica region, a collection of mysterious stones once promised to rewrite history or expose our desperation to believe the impossible. The Ica stones, first brought to global attention in the 1960s, are thousands of riverbed rocks etched with scenes that defy everything we know about the past. Humans hunting dinosaurs, performing advanced surgeries, even observing celestial events with telescopes. At a glance, they seemed like undeniable proof that an ancient civilization had witnessed or somehow coexisted with creatures that died out 65 million years before humans walked the earth. But the truth behind these artifacts is far stranger than their carvings. The story begins with a local farmer named Basilio Ashuya, who claimed to have discovered the stones in a cave. Yet under scrutiny, Ashuya later admitted to crafting them himself, using sandpaper and dental tools to etch the designs before aging them with cow dung. The hoax was elaborate, but what's fascinating isn't the deception, it's why so many wanted to believe it. Despite Ushuaia's confession, the stones developed a cult following, with some theorists insisting he'd been coerced into recanting to hide the real truth. The allure, they tapped into a deep-seated human craving to challenge mainstream science, to imagine a past where humans were the contemporaries of towering reptiles or wielded lost technologies. Even as hoaxes, the Ica stones reveal something profound about how we interact with history. They mirror older myths like the Babylonian dragon slayer tales or medieval accounts of giant bones, showing how every era projects its fantasies onto the past. The stones also expose the slippery slope of out-of-place artifacts, how easily a skilled forgery can exploit gaps in the archaeological record. Unlike the Antikythera Mechanism or Baghdad Battery, which force re-evaluations of ancient ingenuity, the Ica stones serve as cautionary tales. They remind us that not every anomaly is a mystery, and sometimes the most compelling relics are the ones that reflect our own desires rather than reality. Yet their legacy lingers. Modern creationists still cite them as evidence, while pop culture latches onto their imagery in films and comics. Why? Because they offer a simpler, more dramatic narrative than the slow, messy work of real archaeology. The stones didn't just fool people, they gave them a story where humans were always the heroes, even in a world ruled by monsters. That fantasy, it seems, is far harder to debunk than the rocks themselves. In the end, the Ica stones aren't about ancient civilizations at all. They're a mirror showing how eagerly we'll trade facts for wonder and how the past becomes a canvas for our wildest dreams. High on the walls of Egypt's Temple of Hathor at Dendera, a series of enigmatic carvings have sparked one of archaeology's most electrifying debates. Known collectively as the Dendera Light, these intricate reliefs depict what appear to be massive, bulb-like objects with twisting filaments inside, supported by pillars and tended by priestly figures. To the untrained eye, they look uncannily like modern electric lamps, complete with cables and insulators etched into stone over 2,000 years ago. But is this a case of ancient technology, misunderstood symbolism, or something even stranger? Mainstream Egyptologists dismiss the lightbulb interpretation outright. They argue the reliefs show a well-documented religious motif, the creation myth of the serpent god Harsomptus emerging from a lotus flower, symbolizing birth and cosmic energy. The so-called filament is actually a snake, the bulb a stylized womb or blossom, and the cables ritual ropes tied to sacred pillars. Comparisons to other Egyptian art confirm this. Similar serpent in lotus imagery appears across dynasties, always tied to mythology, not mechanics. The temple's own inscriptions describe the scenes in spiritual terms, with no mention of illumination beyond the metaphorical. Yet proponents of the ancient electricity theory aren't convinced. They point to the precision of the carvings, the way the bulbs taper at the base like modern glass enclosures, the filament's zigzag resemblance to a Tesla coil's discharge, even the figure grasping what looks like an insulated cord. Some fringe researchers go further, suggesting the temple's underground chambers, lined with peculiar copper sheets, might have functioned as primitive batteries or conductive chambers. Could the Dendera reliefs be instructions for lost electroluminescent technology, later mythologized? The truth may lie in the gap between ancient and modern perception. Electricity, as we know it, requires context. Terms like current or voltage meant nothing to the ancients, but natural phenomena like bioluminescent algae or scent. Elmo's fire could have inspired symbolic representations that accidentally mirror our inventions. The Dendera carvings challenge us to ask, when does coincidence become evidence? Are we projecting our world onto theirs or glimpsing fragments of forgotten knowledge? Perhaps the most compelling clue comes from the temple's ceiling nearby. There, the Egyptians painted a detailed zodiac map, proof of their advanced astronomy. If they could chart the stars, why not harness earthly energies? Yet without physical artifacts to match the artwork, the Dendera light remains a shimmering mirage on the edge of history, a reminder that some ancient mysteries resist both skepticism and sensationalism, glowing just beyond our grasp. Buried in the roots of a Minnesota poplar tree in 1898, the Kensington runestone seemed like a relic from another world, a slab of grey-wacky sandstone carved with strange, angular symbols. When Swedish-American farmer Olof Oman unearthed it while clearing land near Kensington, he had no idea he'd sparked a firestorm that still burns today. The stone's inscriptions, written in medieval runes, told a chilling story. A group of Norse explorers had ventured deep into North America in the year 1362, only to meet a tragic end. If genuine, this artifact would rewrite history, proving Vikings not only reached America centuries before Columbus, but pushed hundreds of miles inland further than anyone believed possible. Deciphering the runes revealed a harrowing tale. The text described 30 red men and 10 companions camped by a lake, with 10 left dead from evil after a journey across the Atlantic. It was signed by a man claiming to be part of an expedition ordered by a Norse king. The implications were staggering. Leif Eriksson's Vinland settlement in Newfoundland, confirmed by archaeology in the 1960s, was one thing. But this would mean Norse explorers had traversed the continent to modern-day Minnesota, interacting with indigenous peoples over a century before Columbus. Skeptics, however, weren't convinced. Linguists quickly noted anomalies in the runes, mixing medieval and older styles in ways no authentic Viking inscription would. The language contained modern Swedish influences, and the carving's crisp edges lacked the weathering expected after 6 centuries underground. Even Oman's background raised eyebrows. He was a literate Scandinavian immigrant with known interest in Norse history, leading some to accuse him of crafting an elaborate hoax. But defenders of the stone's authenticity countered with surprising evidence. Geological analysis confirmed the rock was local, yet the carving showed signs of mineral deposits consistent with centuries of burial. Some rune experts argued the mixed script could reflect an isolated group preserving older writing traditions. Even more intriguing, the stone's mention of red men aligns with later Norse sagas describing encounters with indigenous Americans. Could it be a genuine artifact clumsily dismissed because it didn't fit academic expectations? The debate took a dramatic turn in 2012 when a team scanning the stone with 3D technology identified tool marks suggesting the carvings were made before the tree's roots grew around them. While not definitive proof, it reignited discussions about pre-Columbian transatlantic contact. The Kensington runestone remains a Rorschach test of archaeology, to some a clumsy forgery, to others a dismissed truth. Whether hoax or history, it forces us to confront how quickly we label inconvenient discoveries as impossible, and how much of the past might still lie hidden, waiting beneath the next farmer's plow. The discovery of a single silver coin in the dirt of a Native American settlement in Maine shouldn't have been earth-shattering, but this wasn't just any coin. Unearthed in 1957 at the Goddard Archaeological Site, a 12th century Norse penny, minted in Norway between 1065 and 1080, became one of the most hotly debated artifacts in North American history. Roughly the size of a modern dime and stamped with the image of King Olaf Kyrre, this tiny piece of currency shouldn't have been there. Its presence in a pre-Columbian Wabanaki village raises a tantalizing question. How did a Norse coin end up over 1,000 miles south of the only confirmed Viking settlement in Newfoundland, centuries before Columbus set sail? At first glance, the Maine penny seems to support the theory of widespread Norse exploration far beyond Vinland. If Vikings traded or traveled as far south as modern-day Maine, it would rewrite the map of transatlantic contact, suggesting deeper interactions with indigenous peoples than previously imagined. The coin's context adds weight to this idea, found alongside thousands of native artifacts in a shell midden. It wasn't just dropped by a modern collector. Radiocarbon dating of the site places it firmly between 1180 and 1235, aligning perfectly with the coin's minting period. Even skeptics admit this wasn't a careless accident. But here's where the mystery deepens. No other Norse artifacts have been found at the site, nor anywhere else along the proposed route from Newfoundland to Maine. If Vikings ventured this far, where are their tools, their ship remnants, their settlements? Critics argue the coin could have traveled through indigenous trade networks, passed hand to hand over generations until it reached Maine, no Vikings required. Coastal tribes like the Mi'kmaq were known to trade extensively, and a shiny foreign object might have been valued as jewelry or a ceremonial item rather than currency. Yet the coin's solitary nature doesn't entirely dismiss Norse contact. Medieval sagas mention expeditions south of Vinland, including an account of Thorvald Eriksson's crew encountering indigenous peoples in a place they called Hop, described as rich with grapes and mild winters, traits matching New England's coastline. Could the Maine penny be physical evidence of these lost voyages? Or is it, like the Kensington runestone, a red herring that says more about our desire for Viking lore than actual history? The penny's journey, whether clutched in a Norse trader's hand or passed through a web of native exchange, forces us to confront how little we know about pre-Columbian connections. One small coin, one enormous question. How many other silent witnesses to forgotten encounters still lie buried, waiting to tip the scales of history? In the dusty hills of California's Coso Mountains, a discovery in 1961 seemed to defy the very laws of time. A mysterious object encased inside a solid geode, a mineral formation that typically takes hundreds of thousands of years to develop. When cracked open, the geode revealed what looked like a 20th century spark plug nestled within its ancient layers. Dubbed the Coso artifact, this find sent shockwaves through fringe archaeology circles. How could a man-made mechanical object, something straight out of a 1920s engine, be trapped inside a rock that predated human industry by millennia? Speculation ran wild. Was it evidence of time travelers, an advanced lost civilization, or even extraterrestrial visitors who'd left their tools behind? The truth, as it often does, turned out to be far less sensational but no less fascinating. Upon closer examination, experts identified the artifact as nothing more exotic than a champion spark plug from the early 20th century, likely from a 1920s-era vehicle or piece of mining equipment. The so-called geode wasn't a natural formation at all, but a hardened lump of clay and mineral deposits that had accumulated around the plug over decades, not millennia. X-ray analysis confirmed the object's mundane origins, and the myth was effectively debunked. Yet the story of the Coso artifact lingers as a cautionary tale about how easily our eagerness to believe can outpace the evidence. What makes this case particularly instructive is how it mirrors the pitfalls of pseudoarchaeology, the tendency to interpret anomalies as proof of grand, alternative histories while ignoring simpler explanations. The artifact's initial appeal lay in its mystery, its seeming impossibility. But as with the Ica stones or the London hammer, the allure often overshadows the scientific process. The Coso episode reveals a pattern. An object is discovered out of context, declared inexplicable by enthusiasts, and only later subjected to rigorous scrutiny that unravels the mystery. Yet even in its debunking, the Coso artifact raises deeper questions about why we're so drawn to these enigmas. Is it the thrill of imagining a past more dramatic than the one we've been taught, the desire to challenge institutional knowledge, or simply the human love of a good story? The spark plug in the geode reminds us that the line between discovery and delusion can be as thin as the layers of sediment around it. And perhaps that's the real lesson, not just about the dangers of jumping to conclusions, but about the stories we choose to tell ourselves when faced with the unknown. Buried 10 feet deep in the banks of Romania's Mureș River, the Aod wedge is the kind of artifact that makes archaeologists check their textbooks twice. Discovered in 1974 alongside mastodon bones, a creature extinct for at least 11,000 years, this wedge-shaped metal object defies simple explanation. At first glance, it looks like a piece of heavy machinery, roughly 8 inches long, 5 inches wide, with a concave depression on one side and clear signs of tool marks. But here's the kicker. It's made almost entirely of aluminum, a metal humans only learned to produce in pure form in 1825. So how did it end up encased in prehistoric sediment, surrounded by fossils from an era when humanity was still millennia away from smelting bronze, let alone mastering industrial metallurgy? Initial tests only deepened the mystery. Laboratories analyzing the wedge found its composition was 89% aluminum, with traces of copper, zinc, lead, and other metals. A blend suspiciously similar to alloys used in modern aircraft construction. The outer layer showed heavy oxidation, consistent with being buried for thousands of years, while interior cuts revealed fresh, shiny metal untouched by time. Skeptics were quick to dismiss it as a misplaced piece of mining equipment or a fragment from a World War II aircraft, but the geological context threw a wrench in that theory. The mastodon bones and surrounding clay layer placed the wedge's burial firmly in the Pleistocene epoch, long before any human could have manufactured it. Theories spiraled into the realm of science fiction. Could this be proof of time travelers leaving behind tools from the future, or evidence of Atlantis-like advanced civilizations that mastered metallurgy before vanishing without a trace? More grounded researchers suggested natural explanations, perhaps the aluminum formed through some rare geological process, though no known mechanism produces pure alloyed metal with tool marks. Others pointed to the possibility of contamination, arguing the wedge might have been driven deep into the strata by construction work or river currents, though no records of such activity exist for the excavation site. What makes the Ayard wedge so compelling isn't just its material, it's the questions it forces us to ask about our own assumptions. History is a story we piece together from fragments, and every so often a fragment doesn't fit. Maybe it's a hoax, maybe a fluke of geology, or maybe a sign that the past holds secrets we're not yet equipped to understand. Until further evidence emerges, the wedge remains a silent enigma, a gleaming metallic what-if buried in the mud of time. Deep in the pyrophyllite mines near South Africa's Ottosdal region, miners in the 1960s stumbled upon objects that looked utterly out of place, small metallic spheres, some no larger than marbles, others as big as tennis balls, buried in rock dated at a staggering 2.8 billion years old. These weren't ordinary rocks. Each sphere had precise grooves circling its equator like latitudinal lines on a globe, so perfectly symmetrical they seemed machined. Even more baffling, some were made of nickel-steel alloys, a material that doesn't occur naturally in that form. How could such meticulously crafted objects exist in rock formed before multicellular life even appeared on Earth? At first glance, the grooves and composition scream artificial. The sphere's near-perfect balance and clean ridges suggest tools far beyond what primitive microbes could wield. Some researchers speculate they could be remnants of a lost industrial civilization, perhaps one that thrived in Earth's deep past before being wiped clean by time. Others take it further, suggesting the spheres might be components of ancient technology bearings, gyroscopes, or even artifacts left by visitors from beyond our world. The problem: there's zero evidence of any civilization, let alone an advanced one, existing billions of years ago. Geologists counter with a far less glamorous but equally fascinating explanation. These could be natural formations called pyrite concretions. Under specific conditions, minerals like pyrite can crystallize into spherical shapes, and geological stresses might create the grooves as the rock layers shift over eons. Some spheres tested showed high nickel content consistent with meteoritic material, hinting they might be remnants of ancient asteroid impacts. The kicker: A few modern experiments have replicated similar grooved spheres by tumbling pyrite in rotating drums, proving nature can, under rare circumstances, mimic precision we'd assume requires intent. Yet doubts linger. Why do some spheres contain alloys not typically found in natural mineral formations? Why are the grooves so uniform, unlike the chaotic fractures usually seen in weathered rock? The debate crystallizes a recurring theme in archaeology. When does coincidence cross into evidence? The Autostal spheres force us to confront how little we understand about Earth's deepest past, and how easily we project our own technological biases onto the mysteries we uncover. Whether they're cosmic accidents or echoes of a forgotten chapter in our planet's history, one thing's certain: these unassuming metal marbles hold secrets we're only beginning to fathom. Stretching nearly 230 feet long, the Bayeux Tapestry isn't just a medieval masterpiece, it's a vivid, thread-by-thread chronicle of one of history's most pivotal moments, the Norman conquest of England in 1066. Woven with wool yarn on linen cloth, this embroidered epic reads like a comic strip from the Middle Ages, bursting with armored knights, fiery battles, and even Halley's Comet streaking across the sky. But behind its colorful scenes lies a tapestry of mysteries, starting with the glaring question: why does it abruptly end with William the Conqueror's victory at Hastings, leaving out his coronation and the brutal suppression of English revolts that followed? The tapestry's storytelling is astonishingly precise for its time. Over 50 scenes unfold with cinematic detail, from Harold Godwinson's oath breaking to the chaos of shield walls collapsing under Norman cavalry. Historians marvel at its accuracy in depicting armor, ship designs, and even battle formations, details corroborated by written accounts like the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. Yet the closer you look, the more intriguing gaps emerge. The final panel is visibly ragged, as if torn or deliberately removed. Some scholars believe missing sections might have shown William's coronation, completing his transformation from invader to king. Others speculate the tapestry was never finished, its creators interrupted by rebellion or lack of funds. Then there's the enigma of its origin. Traditional lore credits William's half-brother, Bishop Odo, with commissioning it to glorify the Normans, but the tapestry's sympathetic portrayal of Harold's doomed English forces suggests a more nuanced purpose. Stitches in the Latin text hint at Anglo-Saxon embroiderers, perhaps even women from Kent, weaving their own subtle critiques into the narrative. Certain scenes, like a shadowy figure fleeing Hastings, are stitched with deliberate ambiguity, leaving room for multiple interpretations. Was this propaganda, historical record, or a cautionary tale about ambition's cost? The tapestry's survival is its own miracle. Unlike fragile manuscripts, it endured centuries of neglect, rolled up in cathedral storage, nearly cut up for wagon covers during the French Revolution, and whisked away by Nazi archaeologists in World War II. Each close call adds to its aura as a relic that refuses to fade. Today, preserved in a darkened gallery in Bayeux, France, it whispers not just of conquest, but of the hands that stitched it, hands that might have known more than they let on. Every frayed edge and cryptic scene invites us to read between the threads, wondering what truths were lost when the final panel went silent. On the windswept shores of Easter Island, known for its towering stone moai, lies a mystery just as confounding: the Rongorongo tablets. These wooden artifacts, carved with intricate glyphs in a script unlike any other, are the only known written language to emerge from the Polynesian islands before European contact. Discovered in the 19th century by missionaries who found locals chanting over them like sacred texts, the tablets immediately posed an enigma. No one alive could read them. Today, despite countless attempts by linguists, cryptographers, and even computer algorithms, Rongorongo remains undeciphered, earning its nickname as the other Voynich Manuscript. What makes these tablets so maddening is their isolation. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, is one of the most remote inhabited places on Earth, yet its people developed a writing system so complex it rivals early cuneiform or Egyptian hieroglyphs. The glyphs themselves resemble a mix of human figures, plants, and abstract symbols, arranged in a unique reverse boustrophedon pattern, lines alternate direction, flipping upside down like a plow turning at the end of a field. This sophistication suggests Rongorongo wasn't just ceremonial doodling but a full-fledged writing system, possibly recording genealogy, mythology, or astronomical knowledge. Yet without a bilingual Rosetta Stone to cross-reference, the glyphs keep their secrets locked tight. Theories about their origins only deepen the intrigue. Some scholars argue Rongorongo could be an independent invention, a linguistic flame that flickered to life in isolation. Others propose a more unsettling idea, that the script was inspired after the islanders saw European writing during Spanish visits in 1770, then rapidly developed their own system, only for it to vanish as the culture collapsed under slavery and disease. This flash-in-the-pan theory is hotly debated, as some tablets show where suggesting centuries of use. The truth might lie somewhere in between. Oral traditions hint that only a small elite class ever learned Rongorongo, and when foreign diseases decimated the island's population, the last readers died before passing on their knowledge. Modern efforts to crack the code have faced staggering obstacles. Of the 26 surviving tablets, many are damaged or burned, and early missionaries viewing them as pagan relics destroyed countless others. What remains is a fragmented puzzle with no clear starting point. Some researchers claim partial progress, identifying glyphs that might represent lunar cycles or birdman cult rituals, but without consensus. Even artificial intelligence, which can spot patterns invisible to the human eye, has hit a wall, unlike the Voynich Manuscript, where debate rages over whether it's a hoax. Rongorongo's authenticity isn't in question. These are real records of a real culture, we just don't know what they're saying. The tragedy of Rongorongo isn't just the loss of language, but the loss of memory. Imagine holding a book where every word is a silhouette, its meaning hovering just out of reach. These tablets could rewrite our understanding of Polynesian navigation, religion, or even early encounters with outsiders. Instead, they stand as silent witnesses to a civilization's brilliance and its fragility. In a world where we've decoded ancient DNA and scanned pyramids with cosmic rays, the fact that wooden carvings on a tiny Pacific island still defy us is humbling. Perhaps that's their final lesson. Some voices from the past aren't meant to be recovered, only remembered. In the quiet halls of Bolivia's National Museum of Archaeology in La Paz, an unassuming ceramic bowl sits with a secret etched into its surface, one that could upend our understanding of ancient global connections. Known as the Fuente Magna Bowl, this artifact was discovered in the 1950s near Lake Titicaca, a region steeped in the mysteries of pre-Columbian cultures like the Tiwanaku. But what makes this bowl unlike any other found in the Americas are the symbols carved into its interior. Precise cuneiform script, the same wedge-shaped writing used by the Sumerians of Mesopotamia over 4,000 years ago. At first glance, the implications are staggering. Cuneiform was thought to be confined to the ancient Near East, with no evidence of its use in the Americas before European contact. Yet here, on a bowl buried in Bolivian soil, are symbols resembling Sumerian dedicatory inscriptions, possibly referencing the goddess Nia or Ninlil. Some translations even suggest phrases like, "to the divine lady of fertility," a parallel to Mesopotamian religious texts. If genuine, the Fuente Magna Bowl would suggest transoceanic contact between continents separated by thousands of miles of open ocean centuries before Columbus or even the Vikings. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss the bowl as an elaborate hoax or a case of mistaken identity. They argue the symbols are superficial imitations, carved by someone who'd seen cuneiform in books or museum exhibits. The bowl's artistic style, they note, aligns with local Tiwanaku craftsmanship, lacking the cultural fusion you'd expect from genuine cross-continental exchange. Worse, its discovery lacks proper documentation, no photographs of the excavation site, no stratigraphic data to confirm its age. Without that context, the bowl floats in an archaeological limbo, too extraordinary to accept without ironclad proof. Yet alternative historians push back. They point to the bowl's patina and wear patterns consistent with centuries of burial, and highlight linguistic analyses by researchers like Clyde Winters, who identified Proto-Sumerian roots in the inscriptions. Even more intriguing are the parallels between Sumerian and Andean myths, flood narratives, sky gods, and serpent deities, echoes that some argue hint at shared cultural memory. Could the Fuente Magna bowl be a relic of lost voyagers, Sumerian traders or explorers who crossed the Pacific and left their mark in the Andes? Or is it a testament to the universal human impulse to carve meaning into clay, creating accidental resemblances across unconnected cultures? The debate crystallizes a fundamental tension in archaeology: how to weigh an outlier against established narratives. The bowl's defenders accuse academia of knee-jerk skepticism, while critics warn of cherry-picking evidence to fit fringe theories. What's undeniable is its power to ignite imagination. Whether proof of pre-Columbian globalization or a masterful local homage to distant symbols, the Fuente Magna bowl lingers as a riddle, one that asks us to reconsider just how small or how vast the ancient world really was. Deep in the highlands of Colombia, nestled among the treasures of the Quimbaya civilization, lie dozens of small golden figurines that have ignited one of archaeology's strangest debates. Crafted between 1000 and 1500 CE, these intricate artifacts, some no larger than a thumb, depict creatures with sleek, aerodynamic bodies, delta-shaped wings, and even what appear to be tail fins. To the untrained eye, they look uncannily like modern jet aircraft, complete with stabilizers and fuselages. But here's the catch: they were made over 1,000 years before humans took to the skies. Mainstream archaeology offers a grounded explanation. The figurines, part of a larger collection known as the Quimbaya treasures, likely represent stylized birds, insects, or even fish, common motifs in pre-Columbian art. Zoomorphic designs were central to indigenous cosmologies, symbolizing spiritual connections between earth, water, and sky. Many feature exaggerated features like elongated beaks or dorsal ridges, typical of artistic abstraction rather than technical schematics. The wings might be stylized feathers, the tail fins nothing more than artistic flourishes. After all, cultures worldwide have crafted animal figurines with creative liberties. Why assume these are any different? But proponents of the ancient aviation theory aren't convinced. They point to the figurines' precise symmetry and streamlined profiles, arguing they lack the organic curves of real fauna. Some models, when subjected to wind tunnel tests, exhibit aerodynamic properties akin to modern aircraft, stable flight patterns that would be impossible for a bird-shaped object without careful engineering. Even more intriguing, a few artifacts bear markings resembling cockpit canopies or landing gear, details with no clear zoological parallel. Could these be symbolic representations of flight, inspired by observations of advanced technology? Or, as some fringe researchers suggest, evidence of lost knowledge or even extraterrestrial influence? The debate hinges on interpretation. Skeptics argue that seeing aircraft in these figurines is a classic case of pareidolia, the human tendency to find familiar shapes in abstract forms. They note that similar, out-of-place artifacts like the Saqqara Bird have been debunked upon closer inspection. Yet the Quimbaya relics stand apart for their sheer number and consistency, with dozens of nearly identical aircraft designs scattered across museums. If they're just birds, why do they share such uniform mechanical features? Perhaps the most compelling middle ground lies in the Quimbaya's sophisticated metallurgy. This culture was renowned for its gold work, using advanced techniques like lost wax casting to create objects of stunning precision. maybe these figurines reflect not literal aircraft but an artistic experimentation with form, a playful fusion of nature and geometry. Or could they encode mythic tales of sky gods, rendered in a visual language we've yet to decipher? The truth may never fully land. What's undeniable is how these tiny golden objects stretch our imagination, challenging us to question where artistry ends and possibility begins. Whether sacred talismans, ancient blueprints, or simply misread fauna, the Quimbaya artifacts remind us that history's most enduring mysteries often come in small, shimmering packages waiting for the right light to reveal their secrets. Buried beneath the sands of modern-day Iraq, the Ubaid culture left behind artifacts so strange they seem ripped from myth rather than history. Among their most baffling relics are the Ubaid lizardmen stone and clay figurines dating back 7,000 years, depicting humanoid figures with elongated heads, slanted almond eyes, and unmistakably reptilian features. Some cradle infants against scaled chests, while others lounge with their legs casually crossed, a pose eerily reminiscent of modern relaxation. These aren't crude caricatures but carefully crafted statues, their details so precise they blur the line between ritual objects and portraits of something or someone once living. What makes these figures so unsettling is their cultural context. The Ubaid people, precursors to the Sumerians, were among the first to build permanent settlements, develop irrigation, and create complex social hierarchies. Their art typically celebrated fertility and daily life, with statues of voluptuous goddesses and farmers. Yet the lizardmen stand apart, their otherworldly aesthetics clashing with conventional Ubaid symbolism. Archaeologists have debated their purpose for decades. Were they representations of gods, perhaps early prototypes of later Mesopotamian deities like Enki, the serpentine lord of wisdom? Or could they be evidence of a forgotten cult that worshipped reptilian ancestors, embedding their beliefs in clay before vanishing into obscurity? Theories spiral into the speculative when parallels emerge. In Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki, celestial beings who descended from heaven, are sometimes described as cloaked in scales or possessing serpentine traits. Some fringe researchers even draw tenuous connections to global myths of lizard-headed creators, from the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl to the dragon kings of Chinese lore. Skeptics counter that the figurines likely symbolize shamanic transformation, a common motif in ancient cultures where humans donned animal attributes to channel spiritual power. The crossed-legged posture, seen in later Buddhist and Hindu art, might signify meditation or a trance state, suggesting the lizardmen were conduits between worlds rather than literal beings. Yet the sheer number of these statues complicates the puzzle. Found in homes, temples, and graves across Ubaid sites, they were clearly central to daily and spiritual life. Some show wear from repeated handling, hinting at ritual use, while others were deliberately broken, perhaps as part of ceremonial deaths. Their infants add another layer, implying these beings weren't just worshipped but integrated into family narratives as if they were kin. The Ubaid lizardmen resist easy categorization. Whether mythic symbols, shamanic avatars, or something more enigmatic, they force us to confront how little we understand about humanity's earliest attempts to make sense of the cosmos. In their slitted eyes and scaled limbs, we see not just artistry, but a whisper from a time when the boundaries between human, beast, and divine were far more fluid and far more haunting. In an Austrian coal mine in 1885, workers splitting open a chunk of tertiary-era coal dating back millions of years stumbled upon something impossible. A perfect cube of iron, sharp-edged and symmetrical, as if machined by modern tools. The wolf's egg iron, as it came to be known, immediately sparked wild speculation. Here was a manufactured object embedded in coal formed long before humans walked the earth. Was it proof of ancient aliens, a lost industrial civilization, or even time travelers leaving behind metallic breadcrumbs? The relic's crisp 90-degree angles and smooth surfaces seem to defy nature's randomness, fueling theories that bordered on science fiction. But science has a way of tempering fantastical claims. Upon closer examination, researchers identified the cube as a simple piece of cast iron, likely a mining tool or industrial debris that fell into a coal seam during 19th century operations. The ancient coal, it turned out, had been contaminated by modern activity, a common occurrence in heavily mined regions. The cube's composition matched post-industrial metallurgy, not primordial alloys. Even its seemingly perfect shape was debunked. Microscopic analysis revealed subtle irregularities, evidence of crude casting rather than precision engineering. The wolf's egg iron's journey from mystery to mundane artifact offers a masterclass in scrutinizing out-of-place claims. Like the London hammer or the Koso artifact, its initial allure lay in its context. The accidental embedding in ancient strata created an illusion of antiquity. But context can deceive. Coal beds, despite their age, are porous archives. Water, landslides, and human interference constantly reshape them, allowing younger objects to settle into older layers. Without rigorous stratigraphic documentation recording exactly how and where an object was found, even the most ordinary item can masquerade as a cosmic anomaly. This relic's legacy isn't just about debunking myths, though. It underscores a deeper tension in archaeology, our hunger for paradigm-shattering discoveries versus the discipline's painstaking standards. For every genuine enigma like the Antikythera Mechanism, there are countless wolf's egg irons artifacts that feel revolutionary until scrutiny reveals a humbler truth. Yet these cases aren't failures. They're safeguards reminding us that extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. The wolf's egg iron, now tucked away in a museum with a corrected label, serves as a quiet sentinel against credulity, proof that sometimes the most valuable relics aren't the ones that rewrite history, but the ones that teach us how to read it. Buried beneath layers of volcanic ash near Toluca, Mexico, lies an artifact that should never have been there. A small terracotta head with features so distinctly Roman it looks like it was plucked straight from a Mediterranean villa. Discovered in 1933 at the Calixtlahuaca archaeological site, this unassuming figurine fragment has become one of the most hotly debated relics in the Americas. Stylistically, it's an anomaly. The beard, hairstyle, and facial structure match 2nd century Roman portraiture perfectly, down to the intricate curls and the sharp, aquiline nose. Yet radiocarbon dating places it firmly in pre-Columbian Mexico, sometime between 900 and 1300 CE, centuries before Columbus set sail. So how did a Roman aesthetic wind up over 6,000 miles from its cultural homeland, buried in a Mesoamerican pyramid? The implications are immediate and explosive. If authentic, the Tacaxic Calixtlahuaca head could rewrite the history of transatlantic contact, suggesting that Roman ships, or at least their artistic influence, reached the New World over a millennium earlier than believed. Proponents of this theory point to tantalizing clues. Roman records mention fleets vanishing into the Atlantic, and the Carthaginian explorer Hanno may have sailed near West Africa. Could a storm-blown galley have drifted across the ocean, bringing survivors who interacted with local cultures? Even more intriguing, similar terracotta heads with foreign features have surfaced in Central America, hinting at a broader, if sporadic, exchange. Skeptics, however, aren't convinced. They argue the head could be a modern contaminant, perhaps dropped by a 19th century collector or even planted as a hoax. The excavation methods of the 1930s weren't as meticulous as today's standards, leaving room for error. Others propose a more nuanced explanation. Could this be an example of convergent artistry? Human faces have universal features, and it's possible an indigenous sculptor working independently coincidentally produced a style echoing Roman realism. Yet the precision of the likeness, the specific grooming styles, the anatomical proportions makes this seem unlikely. the plot thickens with forensic analysis. In 2021, a team using spectroscopy detected traces of local clay in the terracotta, suggesting it was crafted in Mesoamerica, not imported. But that raises another question. If it was made locally, who taught these techniques? Could a shipwrecked Roman artisan have passed on their skills, or did the design travel through an unimaginable chain of cultural exchange, hopping from Europe to Africa to the Americas through lost intermediaries? What makes this artifact so compelling isn't just its existence, it's the doors it opens. The Pacific is vast, but currents and winds do create accidental highways. Polynesians reached South America. Why couldn't others have gone the opposite way? The Takaxic Calixtlahuaca head dangles a tantalizing possibility. That history's map is frayed at the edges, with threads of connection we're only beginning to trace. Until more evidence emerges, this small terracotta face remains a silent envoy between worlds, daring us to reconsider how small or how crowded the ancient oceans really were. Nestled in the mineral-rich deposits of South Africa's Artostel region, the Klerksdorp spheres are tiny enigmas that spark colossal debates. These metallic orbs, no larger than a marble, boast perplexing features, perfectly symmetrical grooves running along their equators as if lathed by precision tools. Found embedded in Precambrian rock dated at a staggering 2.8 billion years old, they shouldn't exist. Or at least they shouldn't look this engineered in a time when Earth's most complex life forms were single-celled microbes. The sphere's unnatural appearance has fueled wild theories. Some researchers argue they're evidence of an advanced prehistoric civilization, one that mastered metallurgy and machining long before humans evolved. Others take it further, suggesting extraterrestrial visitors left them behind as markers or tools. The grooves, after all, are too precise, too evenly spaced to be the work of random geological processes. When held, their balanced weight and smooth texture feel anything but natural. Even their composition raises eyebrows. Many are made of hematite or pyrite, metals that don't typically form perfect spheres without intervention. But geology offers a counter-argument. Experts point to pyrite concretions, spherical mineral formations that occur when layers of sediment crystallize around a central nucleus. Over eons, geological pressures can create stress fractures or ridges, mimicking artificial grooves. Some experiments have replicated similar shapes by tumbling raw minerals in rotating drums, nature's own lathe, grinding patterns into stone through sheer persistence. And those eerily balanced proportions, they might simply be the result of uniform crystallization, where molecules arrange themselves symmetrically under consistent conditions. Yet doubt lingers. Why do some spheres show alloy blends not found in nearby deposits? Why do their grooves align with such mathematical regularity, unlike the chaotic fractures seen in natural formations? The debate often hinges on perspective. To a geologist, they're fascinating quirks of mineralogy. To a fringe theorist, they're smoking guns of forgotten technology. What makes the Klerksdorp spheres so compelling is their duality. They're mundane enough to dismiss, yet strange enough to haunt. Whether you see them as cosmic accidents or crafted relics, they force a humbling question. In a planet as ancient as ours, how do we distinguish the truly extraordinary from the deceptively ordinary? These unassuming orbs, small enough to pocket, carry the weight of a much larger mystery, one that's still rolling unresolved through the sands of time. In the murky depths of the Baltic Sea, a sonar image captured in 2011 by Swedish treasure hunters ignited a firestorm of speculation that still burns today. Dubbed the Baltic Sea Anomaly, this massive, disc-shaped structure measuring nearly 200 feet across rests on the ocean floor like a sunken flying saucer. The sonar scans reveal bizarre details. A smooth, rounded top with a rigid, geometric tail extending behind it, flanked by what appear to be stair-like formations leading to a dark entrance. Even stranger are the anomalous electromagnetic readings reported by divers' equipment malfunctions within certain proximity to the object, as if something beneath the silt is interfering with their gear. Initial theories leaned toward natural explanations. Geologists proposed it could be a glacial erratic, a boulder left behind by retreating ice sheets during the last ice age. Yet the anomaly's near-perfect symmetry and angular features clash with the rough, irregular shapes typical of such deposits. Others suggested an underwater volcanic formation, but the Baltic region lacks recent volcanic activity. Then came the historical angle. Could this be a long-lost Nazi anti-submarine device or a sunken warship from World War II? The anomaly's location aligns with known naval activity, and its strange runway resembles launch ramps used for experimental aircraft. But no records mention Nazi technology matching this scale or design. The extraterrestrial hypothesis inevitably took flight. Eyewitness accounts from the dive team described surfaces with unnaturally smooth textures, like concrete but not quite, and strange circular indentations resembling propulsion vents. Some researchers pointed to the object's uncanny resemblance to the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, though this likely says more about pop culture's influence than ancient astronauts. Still, the anomaly's depth, nearly 300 feet, raises questions. If it is artificial, how did it get there? The Baltic Sea was dry land during the last glacial maximum, meaning the structure, if man-made, would have to predate human civilization as we know it. Skeptics argue the entire phenomenon is a classic case of pareidolia, the human brain imposing familiar shapes on random formations. Sonar imagery, they note, can distort underwater features, creating illusions of structure where none exists. Subsequent expeditions yielded conflicting data. Some scans showed the object as a solid mass, while others suggested it might be a rock formation covered in microbial mats that create odd textures. Yet the lingering mysteries, the equipment malfunctions, the precise angles refuse to fade into the background. What makes the Baltic Sea anomaly so compelling isn't just its strangeness, but its resistance to easy categorization. It's a Rorschach test for the modern age, reflecting our hopes and fears about the unknown. Whether glacial quirk, wartime relic, or something far older, it remains a silent sentinel on the seabed, daring us to dive deeper, or accept that some mysteries are content to stay submerged. Unearthed in 1908 amid the ruins of the Minoan Palace at Phaistos on the Greek island of Crete, the Phaistos disc is a small clay tablet that punches far above its weight in archaeological intrigue. Roughly the size of a modern dinner plate, this fired clay disc is covered on both sides with a spiraling parade of symbols, 45 distinct characters in total, stamped into the clay with meticulous precision. Animals, plants, human figures, and abstract shapes march in neat, curving rows, their meaning locked away for centuries. But what makes this relic truly extraordinary isn't just its undeciphered script, it's the fact that it stands utterly alone. No other artifact from the Minoan world or anywhere else bears this unique writing system. It's a linguistic island in a sea of unknowns, crafted by a hand we can't trace for a purpose we can't fathom. Dating to around 1700 BCE, the disc hails from the height of Minoan civilization, a maritime superpower known for its vibrant frescoes and labyrinthine palaces. Yet while Linear A and Linear B, the other scripts of Crete, have yielded partial translations, the Phaistos disc's symbols resist all cracking. The very method of its creation deepens the mystery. Unlike inscriptions carved or painted onto surfaces, each symbol on the disc was pressed into the clay using individual stamps, making this the earliest known example of movable type in human history, a technology that wouldn't reappear until Gutenberg's printing press 3,000 years later. Why would such an advanced technique be used once, then vanish without a trace? Theories about the disc's purpose range from the mundane to the mystical. Some scholars argue it's a religious text, perhaps a hymn or incantation, noting the repetitive sequences that might denote ritual phrasing. Others see it as an administrative record, a ledger of goods or taxes given the Minoan's sophisticated trade networks. A handful of daring linguists have proposed links to ancient Anatolian or even Iberian scripts, suggesting the disk could be a foreign diplomatic message or a traveler's keepsake. But without a bilingual Rosetta Stone to cross-reference, every translation attempt crumbles under scrutiny. Even the disk's directionality is debated. Should it be read from the outer edge inward, like a tightening spiral, or vice versa? The enigma only deepens with the absence of context. Found in a basement chamber alongside broken pottery and rubble, the disk lay discarded, as if its meaning had already been forgotten by those who left it behind. No accompanying artifacts hint at its use, and no later copies have ever surfaced. This singularity makes it both a treasure and a torment, a message deliberately crafted to endure, yet one that its creators never imagined would become so utterly alien. Modern technology has offered little help. High-resolution scans and algorithmic analysis have mapped the symbol frequencies, revealing patterns that suggest a structured language rather than random decoration. Some sequences repeat like refrains, hinting at poetic meter or incantatory rhythm. Yet without knowing the underlying tongue, even the most sophisticated software hits a wall. The disk's symbols remain a locked door with no key in sight. Perhaps the most haunting possibility is that the Phaistos disk was never meant to be widely understood, a ceremonial object whose power lay in its mystery, not its readability. Or maybe it's a fleeting snapshot of a script that died with its inventor, a solitary experiment in communication that never caught on. Whatever the truth, this small clay circle endures as a testament to humanity's relentless drive to mark its thoughts in permanence, even if the meaning flickers out across the centuries. In the silent dance of its stamped symbols, we're reminded that some messages from the past aren't just waiting to be read, they're waiting to be heard. Off the coast of Japan's westernmost island, Yonaguni, lies an underwater enigma that blurs the line between nature's artistry and human ingenuity. Discovered in 1986 by a local diver, the Yonaguni Monument is a massive, terraced structure rising from the ocean floor like the ruins of a sunken city. Its sheer cliffs, perfect right angles, and stair-like formations stretch nearly 150 feet long and 80 feet tall, far larger than any known natural rock formation in the region. At first glance, it's hard not to see the handiwork of an ancient civilization. Flat platforms that resemble plazas, trenches that mimic roads, and even what appears to be a carved face staring blankly into the abyss. Geologists, however, urge caution. They point to the area's unique sandstone bedrock, which fractures along straight lines due to tectonic stresses, creating stepped formations that can mimic architectural features. Ocean currents, they argue, have eroded the rock over millennia, sculpting its sharp edges and flat surfaces without human intervention. Some researchers have even replicated similar steps and walls in lab simulations using only water flow and sedimentation. Yet the monument's most striking features, like twin megaliths resembling a ceremonial gateway or a precise 90-degree corner nicknamed the Turtle, defy easy explanation. These elements cluster in ways that feel deliberate, as if arranged rather than randomly shaped by the sea. The debate takes a fascinating turn when considering the region's history. Yonaguni lies near the legendary lost continent of Mu, a Pacific counterpart to Atlantis mentioned in 19th century theories. While Mu itself lacks archaeological evidence, the monument's potential age adds fuel to the fire. If man-made, it would have been constructed during the last ice age, when sea levels were hundreds of feet lower, placing its origins around 10,000 years ago, a time when humans were only just transitioning from hunter-gatherers to settled communities. Could an unknown culture have achieved such architectural sophistication so early? Diving deeper reveals even more tantalizing clues. Marine archaeologists have identified what look like tool marks on certain surfaces, along with a series of holes that could have held wooden posts. Nearby, a stone circle and scattered artifacts including pottery shards and carved stones hint at human activity, though none have been conclusively linked to the monument itself. Skeptics counter that these could be debris from later periods washed ashore or dropped by fishermen. The Yonaguni Monument refuses to surrender its secrets. Whether a geological marvel or a drowned relic of prehistory, it challenges us to reconsider the boundaries of natural and human-made. Standing at the edge of myth and science, this underwater giant whispers of a past that might be far more complex and far more mysterious than we've ever imagined. High in the Andes, overlooking the ancient city of Cusco, the walls of Sacsayhuaman stand as a silent testament to engineering so precise it defies belief. These massive zigzagging ramparts, built from limestone blocks weighing up to 120 tons, fit together so tightly that not even a razor blade can slip between them. The stones, some towering 20 feet tall, curve and interlock like pieces of an impossible jigsaw puzzle. No mortar, no gaps, just seamless perfection carved to withstand centuries of earthquakes. What's truly staggering isn't just the scale, but the precision. Each irregular polygonal block was individually shaped to mesh perfectly with its neighbors, creating a structure so resilient it's endured over 600 years of tectonic upheavals without a single crack. The official narrative credits the Inca with this masterpiece, constructed in the 15th century under Emperor Pachacuti. Inca stonemasons, using nothing but bronze tools and stone hammers, supposedly quarried these megaliths miles away, transported them across rugged mountains, and then painstakingly shaped them through trial and error. Archaeologists point to the nearby Rumacolca quarry, where unfinished blocks still bear the marks of chisels as evidence of their methods, but this explanation raises more questions than answers. How did workers achieve such flawless angles without advanced measuring tools? Why do some lower layers display even more refined craftsmanship than later additions, suggesting a regression in technique? And most baffling of all, why does Spanish chronicler Pedro Cieza de Leon, writing in the 1550s, describe Sacsayhuaman as already ancient in his time, built by giants long before the Inca? Alternative theories push the timeline back even further. Some researchers argue the lower tiers, the most precise sections, predate the Inca by millennia, crafted by a lost civilization with technology we can't yet fathom. The wall's curvature mirrors the Earth's radius, hinting at sophisticated geodesic knowledge. Certain joints show drill marks and smooth, concave cuts that resemble work done with advanced machinery, not handheld tools. Local legends speak of Viracocha, a bearded god who taught masonry to an earlier people, while fringe theorists speculate about sonic levitation or even extraterrestrial guidance. The truth may lie in the middle. Perhaps the Inca inherited and expanded upon an older, superior construction tradition, adapting techniques whose origins were already obscured by time. Modern attempts to replicate the walls only deepen the mystery. In 2015, engineers using laser scanning discovered that the block's interfaces aren't just flat, they're subtly dimpled with tiny protrusions that act like seismic dampeners, dispersing earthquake energy. This level of insight into structural dynamics rivals today's architecture, yet it was achieved without computers or calculus. Whether the work of Inca genius or an older, forgotten culture, Sacsayhuaman's walls whisper of a time when stone wasn't just stacked but woven, a testament to knowledge that still slips through our fingers like sand between those uncannily perfect joints. From the celestial precision of the Antikythera Mechanism to the silent riddles of the Rongorongo tablets, each of these 30 relics whispers a tantalizing question about our collective past. They're more than artifacts, they're fragments of a puzzle we're still piecing together, reminding us that history isn't a static textbook but a living, breathing mystery. The Baghdad Battery hums with the ghost of forgotten science, while the Nazca Lines stretch across the desert like a challenge etched in sand. Did we know more than we remember? The Saqqara Bird soars on the edge of possibility, And the Kensington runestone dares us to reconsider who really walked these lands first. What unites these enigmas isn't just their age or craftsmanship, it's their refusal to fit neatly into the stories we've told ourselves. The Dropa Stones and Ubaid lizardmen blur the line between myth and material evidence, while the Piri Reis Map and Yonaguni Monument hint at lost voyages and drowned worlds. Even the debunked relics like the Ica stones or Koso artifact teach us something vital. Our hunger for wonder often outpaces the evidence, and that's not always a flaw. It's what drives us to dig deeper, to question, to imagine. So where does that leave us? Perhaps not with answers, but with something better, an invitation. An invitation to stay curious, to embrace the gaps in our knowledge as spaces where discovery thrives. Maybe you're convinced the Voynich Manuscript holds an apothecary's secrets, or you think the Baltic Sea anomaly is just a glacial oddity. Either way, these relics belong to all of us. Their conversation starters across centuries, bridges between skeptics and believers, between past and present. Now it's your turn. Which of these mysteries keeps you up at night? Do you have a theory about the dendrolite or the Quimbaya artifacts that we haven't covered? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because history isn't just something we study. It's something we debate, something we reimagine together. And who knows, the next great breakthrough might start with a single spark of curiosity from someone just like you. After all, every relic in this list was once someone's forgotten secret until it wasn't. What else is still out there waiting to be found?